You're watching News 24 Live. I'm joined in studio by Harry Phillips from Health 24 to discuss the latest stats and facts on the Ebola outbreak. It seems like it has turned the corner. Harry, thanks for coming in.
Hi, Nick.
Massive drop in cases.
Yeah, massive. So towards the end of last year, we were seeing 300 new cases a week. Now we're seeing like 8. So it's a huge drop. And it's a drop that no one quite knows where it's come from. But it's very welcome. And hopefully it keeps along that trend.
Just reading an article, the president of the World Bank has come out and said, if anything, this outbreak has highlighted how the world is dangerously unprepared for future pandemics like Ebola, particularly in West Africa.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest lesson learned from this whole thing, is that it really was too little too late. And that's come not just from people like Medicine Sans Frontières, but also the governments themselves have said, we weren't ready and we didn't pick it up soon enough. David Cameron's called for a global task force, sort of a rapid response force, to identify and react to these things quicker. And there's often a concern about the cost, but really stopping these things earlier is going to be cheaper in the long run, both in terms of money and in human lives. So hopefully the world is going to start paying attention and looking out for these things and not waiting for this epidemic to sort of get full blown before they start getting involved.
I guess there's a danger of sort of complacency sitting in. We're not out of the woods yet. And what is the state or the effectiveness of these vaccines that have been rolled out?
Yeah, so we're definitely not out of the woods. I mean, it's nice to see the cases going down, but there are still cases being treated. And there are still those rural areas where they can't fully monitor. So you definitely don't want to say, it's done, it's finished, and everyone can go home. The government of Liberia have called for the rest of the aid pledged by the world. They pledged about 1.5 billion, and still about a third of that left to be paid. And then that can go into just really shutting down any of these last few cases and preventing it from flaring up again. That's a big fear, is that everyone calms down and then one guy goes to a village and then suddenly you've got another 100 cases and then the whole thing kicks off again. You've also got countries like Senegal, Mali, which next door and still have opportunity for the spread. So it's definitely not finished. The vaccine is being rolled out. There are 10,000 doses just being delivered, which they're going to give to healthcare workers and high-risk people. The actual concern now is that there's not enough cases to do a proper study. So it's another case of this too little too late. They finally got the vaccine ready, and there aren't enough people with the disease to see if it actually works. An interesting aside to that is they might end up giving these vaccines to chimpanzees and gorillas. Because while there's been a huge human cost to this disease, since the 1990s, a third of the gorilla and chimpanzee population in Africa has actually died as a result of Ebola. So if they've got all these vaccines lying around, they're thinking that's probably a good place to put them.
What kind of a legacy has Ebola left in the affected countries?
That's the real problem. These are 3 of the poorest countries in the world. I mean, there's a lot of issues in these countries, and they've had to put everything on hold to fight off these diseases, or this disease. And now the whole world is they're going to move on. Cameras will leave, the attention will shift elsewhere, but these countries are going to have a huge burden to deal with. You're going to have at least sort of 10,000 orphans. There's 3,000 in Liberia alone. That's 10,000 kids who don't have anywhere to go. Schools have been closed. They've just reopened the schools in Liberia in February, and that's since July. So that's 6 months of education you've got to catch up on. And you've got 3 countries like that. There's a huge, huge burden that these countries are going to have to deal with. And the world, it remains to be seen how much appetite they've got to deal with that. Hopefully they'll be able to sort of get back on track quickly, but it really remains to be seen.
Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure, Nick.